fantastic. This is GT Racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to him!
Oh my God! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get full!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Well, it's Ozicar's longest running and probably most successful championship. It's time for Season 9 of Ozicar Skip Barber Series. And round 1 is going to kick off here at the Red Bull Ring, Austria, in standard format. 2 races, 15-minute race and 30-minute compulsory pit stop race. Qualifying is just wrapping up for race 1, and then there's another qualifying session for race 2 before that one kicks off as well. So it's going to be all action here at the Red Bull Ring tonight on Simspeed TV. I'm David Haynes, joined this season again by Jason Fewens. Jason, how you doing? Got any thoughts?
I'm doing really well, thanks David. Jay, welcome everybody to Simspeed for yet another season. It's been a quick turnaround. We're only here last week ending the last season, and we find ourselves back here facing a new one again. So lots of familiar faces, lots of names we know, and quite a few that we don't. So there'll be a few drivers in amongst the season to mix things up, no doubt. And with the season we had last year, last few weeks, the last 6 weeks, that just proved any one of a number of drivers can find themselves on the podium each week. So I think this one's going to be pretty exciting to watch.
This is our slick new animation for the circuit. If you're not familiar with it, a lot of time at wide open throttle, a couple tight corners, but just a lot of slipstreaming here around the Red Bull Ring. Very, very fast circuit. Pit entry can be a bit of a challenge around here as well. Pit exit, maybe a little bit also. And that might be important in the second race with the compulsory pit stop. You can see the pit lane speed 60 kilometers an hour. So that's not particularly quick, but it could be worse and it could be slower. Also, quite a bit of altitude here as well, but everyone being in the same car probably won't affect that greatly. 10 seconds till qualifying wraps up.
It appears there's quite a few off tracks that people can get caught out on here too. So it's one of the newer tracks of the iRacing service. So those of you that don't know, it's only been released in the last couple of weeks. So there'll be a couple of drivers out there on exploratory laps, I guess, to see how much they can get away with. We'll have a quick look at our starting lineup, Dave. I'll let you run through that quickly.
Yes, indeed. Alex John on the pole position alongside Russell Clark. Braden Martin starting race number 1 of season number 9, where he finished in the championship last season in 3rd. John Schultz, Ben Snell, and defending champ Alex McKellar 6th on the grid. So a lot of returning names here in this season for our grid of about 30 cars. It's James Chastanoff in 7th with Ash Knowles then behind. Matthew Mites, Brady Baldwin, Tim Cornt, and Sean Doyle, the top 12.
Nathan Verney starting off row number 7. Beside him, you'll find Dennis Hancock, Sean McKenzie, and Tim Harris off row number 8. Row 9, side by side, Farron Hancock and Jeremy Bush putting in very close times there. Followed by row 10, Craig Kerman, Peter Wilkinson doing a good job there. Clayton Davis is a relatively new name. He's got a partner in crime with Ora Philberg off row number 11. And on row 12, Peter Bowling and Leon Williams. They make up your top 24.
Last drivers with a qualifying time is Simon Dobner, Jason Gainey, and Sean Carey. Then, without a qualifying time, Darren Lesueur, Alex Attard, and John Snell. That is 30 drivers, and they are lining up for race number 1. 15 minutes or 7 laps. I think we're going to get 7 laps from these Skip Barbers.
Wait for the lights to go green. Watch for the slipstream on the straights here. That's going to be critical. So it'll be important we get a good start and keep those cars clean and incident free.
Everyone lined up on the grid now. Starting procedure underway. Drivers revving, all lined up on the pit straight here at Red Bull Ring for the first race of a new season of Ozicar Skip Barber Series. Clean and even getaway up front. As is typical of these cars, Alex John converting the pole position. They're still a little too wide immediately behind him. That could leave Russell Clark a little vulnerable. Same could happen to John Schultz there as well. Around the outside, Braden Martin has got a good run, but he's going to need to get into the slipstream of the leader up the hill. Let's see them all close up too wide, and whoever can follow Alex John's slipstream is going to be best placed here as they come up underneath the tomato gantry and towards first heavy braking zone after turn 1, and going right up the inside there. Russell Clark and Braden Martin hold the speed around the outside, and the story is very similar, too wide all through the rest of the field.
Yeah, it looks like everybody got a good start and everyone made it through the first couple of corners, so that's probably the start that the organisers here at Ozicar were looking for, so everybody's pointing in the right direction and making their way. See a slew of green cars up the front like we're used to, but at the moment Braden Martin's the charger out the front, sort of upsetting the green party, the Milo car and the Top Split TV guys.
And once again, a couple corners in a row, he's got to carry a lot of speed around the outside, and it'll work for him once again. Very slippery on the curb there for Ben Snell as he rode that inside curve. I've got very loose on him, might have compromised some of his speed. Tyres are still going to be cold, pressures are still going to be building up. Look at them all slide as the track goes from downhill back to uphill on the exit of that corner. John is almost running away from the pack a little bit. Here is Martin's teammate, James Chastanoff, and he is seeing green everywhere he looks through the final sector of the lap here, trying to keep it within the track limits. Track limits end, I think, at those sort of white chevron bits, so you can get just a little bit beyond the red and white curves. You need to keep the tyre onto the white chevrons after that. Tim Court has had some struggles here. Don't see a lot of damage, but he has lost a great deal of time, and he's almost second to last here at the moment. Up front, though, the slipstream is keeping the lead pack together. Alex John, Braden Martin, Russell Clark, John Schultz, all the way through here.
Yeah, so the front group there consists of about 8 or 9 cars, and it's going to be critical that these guys don't get into a battle between themselves, and they want to pull a bit of a gap. We've seen that traditionally, that's what's happened in the past in these Skippy cars, so going 2 by 2 through some of these corners here isn't the way to pull a gap, but they give each other plenty of room, and everybody comes out the other side all in one piece.
Martin out in the lead for the moment. Russell Clark, Alex John immediately behind, and there is no way you see him bolting away from this pack unless they start to battle each other very strongly. The slipstream really is strong all the way a second back when they go uphill and they spend so much time at wide open throttle. A little bit further back off that lead pack, there's some battles going on. Sean Doyle, Ashley Knowles, etc. Here is more, too wide through the middle section of the track. Chastity, is he going to be able to find a lot of speed out wide? He's not, but he might be able to do the over-under here on Alex McKellar. And then, as McKellar goes to defend, Chastanoff drops into the slipstream of the drivers in front. Battling side by side here, and do you want to be on the inside? Do you want to be the outside? Hard to know. I think McKellar on the inside has to ride a little bit more of the curve. He's probably going to hold on to this one. But again, in a sprint race like this, they've got to be careful. They are losing the leaders.
Well, in this little battle, I'd want to be Brady Baldwin sitting behind him, I think, getting the free toe, and there to jeopardise if any incidents recur. As we say that, Brady takes a big dive down the inside for the braking zone at turn number 1, so he's a man on a mission, not waiting for these other two to sort themselves out, but in doing that, runs very, very wide there off the exit of turn 1 and finds himself right where he was about 100 metres ago, back behind McKellar and Chastanoff.
Delivery for Ashley Knowles, but it's Craig Kermond hitting the pit exit cone there as well. He's obviously had some problems. We've seen quite a few of these cars toboggan on those yellow curves that protect the runoff zones, and then maybe spin, maybe just end up losing their speed. The car bottoms out and they don't have the grip that they're after. But on board now is Sean Doyle, currently 11th, started 12th per the graphic. Martin, Ashley Knowles and Brady Baldwin and all of that battle pack up in front of him. So they have to break downhill, turn in towards the apex that drops away, and then the exit just keeps going out of this corner. We saw a few drivers last night in the V's kick up the gravel on the exit, keeping it on the pavement here. as the cars appear to be turning as they want.
So we just had a quick look at Sean Doyle there. He was one of those drivers last night who walked away with a relatively good result. He had a good positioning finish in race number 1 and then worked his way from the back of the field to a good top 10 result in race number 2. So over the last couple of weeks, I dare say he's done plenty of laps around here, so he'd know his way like the back of his hand. So watch for him. I dare say he'll be making a couple of late moves as this race unfolds.
And it's a 2-pack race now as they're going to start 3 laps done, 4 laps to go. Top 5 have a bit of a breakaway, as you can tell. So the fighting between McKellar and Chastanov has dropped them back. Seen a lot of other drivers catch them as well. That's Baldwin poking his nose out, looking down the inside. Sean Doyle is then going to follow his slipstream down towards turn 1 as the passing can happen. And Baldwin down the inside worked so great for him a couple of laps ago. This time, it's okay. He's level with Chastanov that he's battled. Chastanov is going to follow the slipstream of Alex McKellar, except McKellar changes lanes and they're going to go 3 wide behind now. Oh no, they're not. Ash Knowles has decided, even in the sprint race, too early for that kind of shenanigans.
Yeah, and being teammates too, first person you want to beat is your teammate, and the last person you want to take out is your teammate. So Ash Knowles there thinking better of it and decided to pop back in behind Chasty and hopefully get a tow down this back straight. So good decision there from Ash.
Ash Knowles in a new livery. He's in a locked-on car, but all the locked-on cars have had his old livery, Brewster Coffee, added to them. So the 1 week off season, a lot happens.
So we jump on board with Ben Snell. He's got absolutely nowhere to go. He's got Alex McKellar there on the right-hand side, and I think it's Chasty in front of him. So Ben will be pretty keen to round these two up and put them behind him, but easier said than done in these Skippy cars because they're very, very draft dependent.
Cohesion starting to break up a little bit between the top 5. Braden Martin still leading it, but the Milo cars have been maybe potentially trying to work together here a little bit, and Alex McKellar behind might almost be able to catch these guys. That's beyond track limits for our driver in 3rd place, Ben Snell. No real problems, and that's well beyond the track limits. If you go far enough out there, there is a slowdown. Let's see if he's going to have to serve one on the pit straight here. 3 wide in the Milo formation, 2 wide for the lead as Alex John is going to sneak back to and take that one. Martin rolled out of the throttle there and said, you take that, take a good line and good speed up through turn 1. Let's make a race of this one with 3 to go.
Yeah, that Milo car doesn't necessarily look like he's lost a lot of speed there, so if he has got that slowdown, he's managed to wash it off with minimal effect, because we saw one of our potential race leaders last night on the final lap cop a big penalty there and as a result dropped down the field. So the slowdown's definitely there, but I'm thinking he might have avoided it with more good luck and good measure.
Side by side for the lead. Keller did catch this pack by a second on the last lap as well. So if they keep fighting like this, McKellar might be able to get them. He's dropped all of those behind, and James Chastanov is now a conductor. 3 wide though, that's what he's thinking about. That's what ends in this kind of carnage. Yeah, huge damage. 3 cars damaged between the lead pack here. One of the Milo cars went down the inside 3 wide, and there wasn't room, there wasn't space for that, and it's all kicked off, and poor Braden Martin back into 17th now. A lot of damage on his car. Russell Clark leads, John Schultz in 2nd, and teammates have, really bowled a bit of a strike there.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. It's not what any of us want to see, because they've spent the first 5 or 6 laps driving side by side, giving each other plenty of room. So a little misjudgment there from someone, and that's why our race leader tumbled down the timesheets, and he's got significant damage to his car too. So bad luck there for Braden Martin. He certainly didn't deserve that.
Replay. 7 is Russell Clark. He gets down the inside, all up on the curb, and at the same time, Martin gives him space down the inside. Around the outside was Alex John, who I didn't think, just wouldn't have been aware that it was going to go 3 wide there.
No, it's very hard to tell sometimes just exactly who's on your left or your right, but it does look like he's turned in and potentially, got loose there, but potentially cut the nose off the number 9 car there of the locked on Brady. Sorry, not Brady, Braden. and as a result, a couple of cars turned around missing some panel damage.
Top two are running away. Alex McKellar is still in his own little world. And then here is fourth place. And what a pack this is. Utterly inseparable. Brady Bolden's looking down the inside of James Chastanoff. Ben Snell is going to stay in line. Sean Doyle doesn't want to do that, but I think he's just going to get his nose chopped a little bit at the apex. And Mike Ash Knowles, everyone in here. This is 4 all the way down to 16th place. Look at them all. And Chastanoff is just trying to keep them all behind him.
Yeah, these Austrian hills here in the Red Bull Ring. So I could say the hills are alive with the sound of skippies tonight. But with a lap to go after this one, it's make or break time for some of these guys. So they'll be watching their mirrors, positioning their car for the last lap. Because, like I said, one little mistake, you find yourself out of the top 10 very, very easily with this little battle pack that's formed.
Couple of the locked-on cars treating the track limits as very advisory, and then wide of the apex for Ben Snell. Is it going to help him carry his speed on to the final lap? It's the leaders, teammates in Schultz and Clark. McKellar just needs a tenth and he can pick the slipstream off these guys. Look at his speed through turn one. Never say never on the final lap here. He's going to pick up a toe that'll close him all the way up the hill, and then anything could happen in fourth place. Chastanoff has them covered just a little bit at the moment. Ben Snell's in line with him, and then it's Brady Bolden where they're going 3 wide here. To his left, might be Ash Knowles. To his right, Sean Doyle. Stuck in the middle, and that is in just a bit too hot for Ash Knowles, I think. A little bit of contact there, and Doyle gets away with it. He's going to send that other locked-on car a bit further back into the field on the final lap here. That was caught the leaders.
A little bit of a brake check up there for those guys, and it caught some of the drivers at the back of that pack unaware. So a little bit of contact, but I think everybody managed to keep going, which is good to see. But we are running out of opportunities for passes here, so it is really an opportunity here for these guys to make a good start to the season, but you just as easily could lose it as well. So.
Oh, bit of contact there. McKellar stands on the brakes so that he doesn't spin it all the way around. He just put his nose. The rear crash structure of John Schultz through the middle of the corner there, and he might have to settle for third in this one. Let Russell Clark get away a bit for the win. This is where the action zone is at. Never accused Sean Doyle of having a boring race in Ozicar. He's right in the thick of a bunch of locked-on iRacing cars. And Bolden's just maybe going to get away with that one there. Breaking away from that pack, and Russell Clark is going to take the first win of Season 9. His teammate John Schultz in second, and Alex McKellar completing the podium. Here it is, all kicking off through the final sector. We got a drag race there that I think Chastanoff has just held on to from Ben Snell. Brady Baldwin held on to sixth.
Big loser out of all that, though, I think it was Nathan Vernier who might have got himself a slowdown out of that last corner like we spoke about earlier. So he ended up finishing the race there in 13th. So he pulled off to the right-hand side as their line approached and to reduce that slowdown penalty that he potentially had. So that might have been him there on 3 wheels, actually, because we just had a quick look at a wheel bouncing across the track.
Might have been Braden Martin out of frustration as well, because he led some laps here and then was meat in a sandwich that was left out and got mouldy, and he just finished 17th after being part of the lead 5 breakaway there. But here is how they finished race number 1. Russell Clark the winner, John Schultz in second, and Alex McKellar in third. Then that next crazy pack that you totally expected we were going to get from these cars at a track like Red Bull Ring Spielberg. Chastanoff in fourth, then Ben Snell, Brady Baldwin, Matthew Mites, Sean Doyle, Tim Harris, Ash Knowles in 10th. Run through here to Dennis Hancock in 11th, Alex John in 12th, Nathan Verney, Jeremy Bush, Sean McKenzie, Farron Hancock, Braden Martin, as I said, in 17th, Eddie Wilkinson 18th, RF Elberg 19th, and then Clayton Davies in 20th. Cars still on the lead lap were Darren Lasudley, Leon Williams, Craig Kerman, Alex Attard, Jason Gainey, Sean Carey, John Snell, Simon Dobner, and Peter Bowling. And the only proper retirement in this race was Tim Corn.
Yeah, plenty of good battles formed out throughout, and some quality drivers there in the field as well. So Big congratulations and brilliant start to his Season 9 campaign there for our Race 1 winner, Russell Clark. But now we've got to go back and see whether he can reset and do it all over again. So you had a teammate in the form of John Schultz there following him across the line in second. So those Milo cars off to a good start to the season in both their personal endeavours as well as the team championships.
And that's race 1. Qualifying for race 2 is coming up shortly, and then that's the long pit stop race. 30 minutes, a little more strategy, but still a super powerful slipstream around here at the Red Bull Ring. We take a little break here on Simspeed, and we'll come back with qualifying for race number 2.
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year, but the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker, especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs, any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. Feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
welcome back. We are shortly jumping into qualifying, which is going to be 1 lap qualifying, make or break for our drivers to set the grid for race number 2, which then has the compulsory pit stop, compulsory 2-tyre change. And I've heard, Jason, that the pit window might be a little narrower than in some other rounds and previous seasons. Speaking of previous seasons, this is how the points were officially rounded after the 6 rounds of Season 8. Alex McKellar, the champion, from Ben Snell. Braden Martin just 5 points behind him. Russell Clark, Donald Sabanel, James Chastanet, Dennis Hancock, Sean McKenzie, Bernie, and Nathan Mites. Is that meant to say Matthew Mites? I reckon someone did a little bit of copy-paste wrong putting that graphic together. But, yeah, I mean, I think all of those names, bar maybe Sean McKenzie, we've got back again.
Yeah, and as a result of the final round in last season, that really mixed up those final results too, because there was quite a few drivers that had DNFs and misfortune in that final race, and it really came down to the last couple of laps of the season to dictate where some of those drivers actually finished up. So hopefully we can continue with that kind of racing again this season, and we're in for a good 6 weeks.
Absolutely. And qualifying starts now. Drivers do their out lap and then 1 flying lap in this 5-minute session. So it is make or break for qualifying here. And for example, seeing John Schultz doing a lot to try to build some tyre temperature on his out lap. I wonder if we'll see other drivers doing that as well. Look at him all the way up the hill. He's just trying to make sure that when he goes for that 1 flying lap, he's going to have a lot of grip.
Yeah, so the fuel consumption around here is just over half a litre per lap. And did mention the change in the regulations for this season. So traditionally we've seen a lot of drivers dive for pit lane at the end of the first lap. And in Aussie car format, they've changed things up a little bit to try and make the racing a bit more spicy. So pit window tonight now will be somewhere between lap 5 and 6 onwards. So there'll be a change of thought for a lot of these drivers who are just used to diving into the pits at the end of their first lap and then going to the checkered. So it's going to be a lot more strategic thought going into it. It depends on where you are on the track, who's around you, and what kind of gap you potentially might have. So really good opportunity to mix things up here going into season 9.
I'm wrong, and I'll admit it, because Sean McKenzie is out on track. I don't know who I saw in that top 10 from last season that I thought I hadn't seen on the grid here in this season. And a lot of the drivers are starting to work their way around this out lap. Strategies all around the tyre warming, and Peter Wilkinson might be one of the first to kick off a flying lap. Of course, track limits even more important in qualifying because you don't want your lap deleted. Peter Wilkinson very smooth through the final corner to then launch into what's going to be his one and only qualifying lap.
So we did touch on it a little bit earlier too with Ash Knowles joining the lockdown guys here. There's been a little bit of movement with some of the drivers. Some of our season favourites or regulars are stuck with the same team, but tonight we are debuting in the Skip Barber Series at least, the new Ozicar team, Aussie Racing team. So there's been a couple of drivers join that from the series, so it'll be good to see those guys mix it up amongst the field tonight. So keep an eye out for the new red, white and blue paint scheme you didn't see last season.
Yep, and it'll be familiar to those who watched the Formula V series last night though. So we also saw Sean McKenzie out in that livery. He's Peter Wilkinson on his lap though. Made it cleanly through the first 2 braking zones, now into this one where the track really drops away at the exit and uses a bit of the curb, but it didn't look like it understeered too badly for him. Front grip is going to be absolutely key through these fast left-handers though. We saw in race number 1 that he's got to throw it in with confidence and try to carry speed all the way through the middle of these corners, particularly the next left-hander. Seemed like, well, the only really sort of the only fast left-hander on the track here.
Yeah, with the contingency of right-hand corners, by the time you get to that one, the right-hand side of your car the tyres might be quite warm, but the lefts aren't necessarily up to temperature. So just got to be aware of that as you tip it in, because it could catch a few drivers out tonight as the race unfolds.
Just within the limits of legality, I think there through the penultimate corner, through the final one, no worries at all for Peter Wilkinson. This lap ought to count from everything we've seen so far. We'll start to see some times hit the board. 150.9 for Peter Wilkinson. James Chastano's up the top at the moment, and he gets replaced by Ben Snell with a 148.8 as all of the lap times start pouring in. Get an idea of who's going to be on pole for the 30-minute race.
Was it Snell that was warming up his tyres there before we saw? Or that might have been John Schultz. So yeah, P4 for Schultz is half a second off the pace, so might have took a little bit too much heat into those tyres. So he's still finding himself off the second row of the grid so far, with a few more cars still to make their way over the grid, over the finish line. So not a total loss for him. He's back to 5th now. So.
Freddie Baldwin into 7th there. Sean Carey, oh, that might be too wide. I think he might have gone beyond the white markings on ultimate corner. We're going to see, though. This will be a good test if my eyesight is okay, whether or not this lap time counts for Sean Carey. 3. I don't think it does, and time runs out on qualifying regardless. So there is 7 or so drivers without a qualifying time after that high-pressure one-lap shootout style qualifying. Ben Snell on the pole from Braden Martin. Chastanoff and Alex John the next row. Then John Schultz and Alex McKellar. So all the usual suspects up the front for this next race. Then it's Brady Baldwin, Russell Clark, Tim Harris, Tim Cornt, Matthew Mites and Dennis Hancock.
So we'll make our way down the field. Jeremy Bush, a good time there, 1 minute 50 and a half off at row number 7, and he'll be partnered alongside with Nathan Verney. Sean McKenzie, we spoke about a little bit earlier, off row number 8. He's beside Farron Hancock's, and Peter Wilkinson, we saw do a flying lap of qualifying there at a 50.9. He has Ira Felberg on row number 9. Simon Dobner, Leon Williams there, row number 10, followed by Clayton Davis and Peter Bowling. And number 32 there off row number 11, a new name to the series, Sean Doyle. So he'll be one to watch off row number 12. Starting there in car number 74, unable to set a time, and Ash Knowles beside him in car 370.
Yep, a couple more drivers here without the qualifying times, and some interesting names as well. So Darren Lasue, Craig Kermit, Alex Attard, Jason Gain, John Snell, and Sean Carey without a qualifying time. And you also saw a couple others didn't set one. They're going to start from the back of the grid and hope that they've got a good strategy. Here they are all lining up the front row once again. Ben Snell on the racing line on the grippy side, but the outside for turn 1. Braden Martin looking down the inside, and Braden Martin actually gets away a little bit better than Ben Snell. I think he bogged down, so not the greatest jump from the pole sitter. Braden Martin is looking down the inside of turn number 1 for the lead here. He got a good drop of the clutch, but then immediately the slipstream up the hill. You get a good idea of exactly what a rise it is from turn 1 up the hill towards what's technically turn 3. We've got a Road America situation with the turn numbering. Everyone, it seems, cleanly through turn 1, especially up the front, and then slipstream right back. Ben Snell goes for the lead to take it away from Braden Martin once again. Chastanoff has a peek down the inside there as well. Alex John isn't going to do anything crazy down the inside. That's one of those Ozicar Racing team paints that you mentioned.
So good work for everyone there, making their way through the first couple of corners. Braden Martin got off to an absolute flyer, but he's now ducked in behind his teammate in James Chastanoff, sitting in P number 3. So he's shaken off the misfortune that he had there in race number 1 and come back with absolutely speed on his side, putting it on the front row of the grid. So we do have a longer race here tonight, 15 laps around this circuit. So he will be aware that we've had a spin there in the front, and as a result, a couple have gone off.
Yeah, leaders around. Braden Martin and Ben Snell Ben Snell parked in a difficult spot. Braden Martin, I think, avoided the wall, but he spun around. Cold tyres. Those guys were battling, maybe pushed it a little too hard. Someone else in sympathy running all the way around the outside. Let's get a replay because it's also caused some troubles for some deeper in the field as well. Snell spins, Braden Martin maybe has to take avoiding action. He spins around. He's all the way out on the grass here. Loses out time, but manages to keep it away from those spectators. That's normally where the Max Verstappen stand would be. So Snell kind of triggering that one through this corner on the cold tyres. Rear gets away from him. Chastanov doesn't know which way to go, and then the effect behind is that Braden Martin spins around as well.
We saw in the background there John Snell and Jason Gainey, the two teammates. They come around that corner, the Wolfpack Racing drivers, and come together. So the two of them both found themselves on the inside there in front of what would be that great big orange grandstand of Max Verstappen's supporters. But they're back on the track now, still circulating, so no harm done, but just a bit of a loss of time on track. So
never say never in a race like this as well. If it's the sprint race, you'd say, oh, there goes your chance of a top 10, but I would not say that with the way that they're racing up the front here and the strategy still to unfold. Of course, this time, no lap one pit callers, so they wouldn't be able to get the fuel to go to the end. So they got to keep racing early and in the traffic and in the pack. John Schultz leading, Chastanov and Brady Baldwin side by side for second. Alex John behind that, and then Alex McKellar in fifth at the moment, but that chops and changes really quickly as Russell Clark gets his nose into that battle. Who's been a big mover throughout the early laps here then? I think Sean Doyle up into 15th as one of the drivers with no qualifying time. Another driver's around from the lead. Who's that dropping down the order?
John Schultz, I think that might have been another Milo car at the same corner, suffering the same fate. So he's facing the right way now, but of course he goes from the front of the grid back down outside the top 20. So we jump on board with Sean Doyle here, having a quick look down the inside of one of the locked-on cars of Peter Wilkinson, going into the heavy braking zone there on the penultimate corner.
Team Milo are 2 from 2 in 2 laps of spinning from the lead in that corner. Yeah, maybe the right-hand side tyres just don't warm up around a clockwise track like this with so few corners. James Chastanov going for the lead down the inside of Brady Baldwin.
Sorry, I was going to say, if I was Russell Clark, I wouldn't want to be leading on this particular lap going through that infield section at the moment. I'd hand it over because the Milo cars aren't having the start to this race that they particularly thought they might, I guess.
The big mover through the field is Ashley Knowles, who's up 9, but it is still side by side for the lead. And look at the pack they've got all the way back down to 12th place. Shooting it down the inside, James Chastanov. Then because of the camber at the very, very tight apex of the corner there, being about a car width wide, you often get better traction off the corner, particularly if you lack a limited slip diff or something, or any adjustability to the differential settings on these cars, best I can tell. It's going to be side by side once again, with Chastanov still down the inside. Brady Baldwin doesn't want to be in the Alex Albon position around the outside there. Top 3 start to sneak away from Keller and Harrison Clark.
As we watch this dreaded corner now, I'm hoping, I don't want to put the commentator's curse on anybody, but there should be temperature in the tyres now, as it looks like Chastanov and Brady Baldwin there go side by side. So that's the first time in this race we've seen leaders go through that corner without actually getting loose. So hopefully these guys here will keep it clean, and that leaves Alex John there in car number 77 sitting in 3rd place, looking for a way around these two. So going side by side, not the quickest way to get things done at the moment.
Tell you what, if you're James Chastanov, holding everyone up, going side by side, you're doing a big favour to some of your teammates, aren't you? So with no one being able to pit this early yet, it might almost be an advantage for some teams to just let some of their other drivers catch the pack potentially. It's going to be too wide once again. Who has scored the lead of that lap? Maybe it was Brady Baldwin, not sure. He's still looking down the inside at turn 1. Chastanov will let him have it, but then try to carry the speed off that corner. And this long, full throttle blast. And it's uphill. It's some Austrian mountaineering. You almost gain 100 meters of elevation or more all the way up towards technically turn 3. Here is Braden Martin. Thought he would have learned about going down the middle 3 wide from race 1, but he hasn't. He's slotted that gap, and he's back up into 15th now. Catch a little replay. Here he was trying to go down the inside 3 wide, and no. Well, that's well wide. Is that a slowdown for the driver who's on the outside? Peter Wilkinson, it must have been. I think it was Wilco.
Either way, we're back to the leaders now, and the battle's still going on up the front with Brady Baldwin there and James Chastanoff. Repeated last lap, going side by side. So Alex John, Alex McKellar, Tim Harris there making up the top 5. Russell Clark in P6, all separated by less than a second.
They're doing what in the top 5? But with that said, 1.5 seconds faster on this lap was Braden Martin than these leaders, the way they're doing this. So, yeah, Braden Martin's going to have to get Chastity something for Christmas, because now only 7 seconds off the lead is Braden Martin, the way all this keeps going. Pit lane, still no action there. Lap 4 completed, and it's 13 cars in 4 seconds for this lead pack.
Yeah, so the pit window is very much dictated by the amount of fuel. That's how they managed to mix things up a little bit this season. So you have to burn X amount of fuel before you can dive into the pits and actually top up again. So these cars here, being in draft, are obviously not using as much fuel as potentially they could be. So I dare say this time round we'll definitely see a few of those drivers dive into the pits opportunity. But you could see a couple of those play the card where they would stay out a little bit longer and try and get the overcut as well.
You only need 8 or so of these skippies, maybe 9, before you've got enough horsepower to make up a whole Formula 1 car. And they are absolutely slipstreaming off each other. Once again, Chastanoff in the lead, holding the inside, trying to force Brady Baldwin to go around the outside here. It's a move that you can do sometimes, but Baldwin's not brave enough on the brakes for that one. You think a lot of them are really just doing that Tour de France, holding place, staying in the pack until it all goes nuts after the pit window?
Well, it is 15 laps, but it is also a sprint race, so this time round really should mix things up, and some of these guys that are in these little battle packs might actually decide to get out of it, dive for that pit opportunity, and then come back out in some clean traffic and hopefully put in some quick lap times without slowing each other down.
The view from Sean Doyle, our biggest mover in the race so far. 14 positions gained, he's up into 9th. He caught this lead pack. He's been grabbing some positions bit by bit through the lead pack. He's not going to grab that one as he rolls out of the throttle into the penultimate corner. Look to pit entry though. Some big names from high up in the grid going into pits, and Brady Baldwin will carry on into the lead. So seeing Chastanoff, Alex John, Alex McKellar going for pit lane. A few others might join them, but there's actually quite a few staying out as well. Braden Martin is in, Farron Hancock's and Ashley Knowles in as well.
So that very distinctive car of Brady Baldwin out the front at the moment now, so he's still got a train of about 6 cars there behind him, so it did mix things up a little bit, but Brady now has had the opportunity to lead this race without the hindrance of James Chastanoff, as we see Chastity leaving the pits, completing his pit stop now, and right in his shadow you can see the 2 top split TV cars of Alex John and Alex McKellar. So these guys will come out in a little bit of traffic, hopefully in front of it, not behind it.
This is a long pit stop for Braden Martin. He's still being held. It's meant to be 10 seconds and he's been there 25 seconds now. Has he made an unsafe pit entry? Has he been speeding on the pit lane? Because he's still being held, and it goes from bad to worse in this opening round for Braden Martin.
So the top 2 now, Brady Baldwin and Russell Clark, got a little bit of a gap. It's nearly a second back to Matthew Mites there, sitting in 3rd, and he's got his mirrors full of Dennis Hancock, Sean Doyle and Jeremy Bush. So plenty of action still happening up the front of this field here on lap number 6 of 15. These guys will have to start thinking about when they are going to pit and who's around them. So a couple of teammates there in Sean Doyle and Dennis Hancock, so they might see those 2 dive in together. But apart from that, a couple of locked-on cars in there as well, so I wonder if they're on the radio to each other talking.
Goes Baldwin for the lead. That's a super late decision from Sean McKenzie. I want to see if that counts as an unsafe pit entry, because you can get away with that at the Nürburgring on the GP circuit. I wonder if you can get away with that here at the Red Bull Ring. We are going to see, look like a very clean, clear and safe pit entry for Brady Baldwin. I want to see how long Sean McKenzie gets held in this one. They're both going to find their pit crew. And here is the drivers who have already pitted. It's Chastity, and he's got the top split TV cars right in behind him of Alex John and Alex McKellar, double Alex.
You see Brady Baldwin.
What about
he's exiting the
McKenzie?
pits
Still
now.
being held. Sean McKenzie, 10 seconds longer in the pit lane. I think he's discovered that is an unsafe pit entry. Baldwin rejoining, maybe just in the slipstream of these other leaders. He'd want to be in their draft, otherwise he's going to be in trouble. There's 3 who pitted early. They've managed to do a good inlet, some clear traffic. Maybe they'll get away, but it's always first lap or so after those cold tyres, you struggle to put in the pace. The undercut doesn't really work for these cars. Oh, that's that curb, really catching our drivers out through that section of track there. One of the locked-on cars, Matthew Mites, able to catch a really big slide.
Did a really, really good job to hold that. So he's lost a position, but not necessarily a lot of track time. So he'll be able to regather his thoughts now, and this might just be the opportunity for him to duck into the pits and get those fresh tyres and reset his mindset. Looks like he's staying out though. 2 in front ducking.
Yeah, Clark and Doyle into pit entry, kicking up a little bit of the grass there. It was Sean Doyle, but everything else from the pit entry looked pretty smooth. That's what we've got to look out for. I think a couple drivers have been given unsafe pit entry. From what I could see, it might have been Sean McKenzie, Braden Martin, Ashley Knowles, Darren Lasue. I can see some long pit stops there, and you can't go across that painted section here. You can do it at the Nürburgring Grand Prix track, like I said, and I think you can always do it a little bit of it at Hockenheim, but here, not allowed.
As we watch the leaders cross the line to complete lap number 7 and 4th position there, Brady Baldwin, who once led this race, it looks like he's dropped off the back of this group. So for the remaining laps, he might be out in no man's land at the moment. As we see one of the cars go around.
It's a spin on pit exit for Russell Clark. Was it on pit exit? Yeah, it was. That was his pit exit, and he's done something to spin that around. Doesn't seem like much damage. All the wheels facing the right way. How much angle has he got in that steering? Is it steering straight? But let's take a look, because we've been talking about now how the pit entry can be a little difficult. Here's the pit exit. You're off the speed limit, so you're trying to race your way to catch that pack. And clip Armco on the exit there.
I'd suggest cold tyres might have caught him out there, and he saw that leading group pull up in front of him, and he was very, very keen to get onto the back of him, and as a result, a little bit ambitious there on the exit of the pit lane there, and around she went.
Here's the leaders who haven't pitted yet. Mites, Hancock, Jeremy Bush, Nathan Verney, and it's going to change as 3 of them come in, and Jeremy Bush, I think, continues. Tough to read, because by the official timing, they can sort of jump ahead by taking that pit entry up until they get to the speed limit, and then the cars on the racing line are faster. So Nathan Verney, it was, continues. These are the drivers who have stopped. Coming through the final corner. Will Chastity leaving John and McKellar. They are dropping Brady Baldwin, which is going to be tough for him.
We saw Chassis last season take his maiden win in the Ozicar Series here, albeit on an oval circuit, so he's still yet to get one on a traditional road circuit like we see here, so he'll be very keen to maximise his points and opportunity here tonight and keep these 2 top split TV cars behind him. But as we've seen in previous races, these guys race very, very well together. They race for points. There's no real team orders. We've definitely seen them going side by side on the last lap fighting for position, but Chassis at the moment leading the way into turn 3.
So that humongous pack we had before the pit stops have all fanned out just a little bit, but Doyle and Mites have made their pit stops and they've been reunited here. The teams that have, the drivers who've cleared their pit stop, they're 5th and 6th, so not bad here. Mites is looking a little racy, and I think, was it Doyle? Or one of them ended up on that yellow curb on the exit there, still displaying some of the cold tyres, and the track temperature is only 21 Celsius, so it is a little chilly despite the sun being out.
I think there was Doyle getting wide, and that's compromised his run down that back straight, so that gave Mites an opportunity to stick his front wing underneath Doyle's rear wing and get a bit of a tow, but unable to make the pass stick there, but I don't think he was necessarily pushing too hard either, so good driving from those 2 there to keep things under control.
Still dying to know what exactly is in that bottle that you can see hanging off the back of these cars. Here's some other drivers yet to pit. Ben Snell is in green without his front wing after that spin early on. But he clipped the rear of Chastity's car, I think, might have been where he lost that front wing. Let's see if it's working for him. I want to say I don't think it is, but does Ben Snell have the fastest lap of the race, or does Sean Doyle have that, honestly? But no front wing, he's got the fastest lap of the race. Note that one down. Jeremy Bush actually has the fastest lap of the race, but Ben Snell might be second or so on that one, and he's got Peter Wilkinson right behind him. They're yet to stop. I wonder if he'll get a new front wing when he stops. Probably not. Leading of the cars who have stopped now, Chastanoff, John and McKellar.
So we've got the two top split TV guys there sitting in second and third, quite content at the moment. I don't think anyone's really too keen to stick their nose down the inside and make a real lunge to the lead, but Chastity will definitely know that they're there waiting for an opportunity, so he'll be keeping his apexes tight, making sure he hits his braking markers and ensuring that he doesn't get on that accelerator too early and lighting up those rear tyres, putting some unnecessary heat into them. So we have 6 laps to go after this one, so we are counting down our round opener here at the Red Bull Ring up in the high altitude hills of sunny Austria.
The sun's out today. So the battles at the moment, you've got those 3 drivers that for the net lead, led by Chastanoff. You've got these guys battling over 5th here. Jeremy Bush and Dennis Hancock having a little battle behind. Mr. Doyle, I think that counted as an off track there probably. Or it might just keeps one tyre within the limits on the exit. So Bush and Hancock you can see immediately behind battling. John Snell and Leon Williams battling. Brady Martin, Sean McKenzie, 2 drivers who got penalised for their pit entry, are racing against each other down in 22nd as well. So after the pit stops, some of the packs starting to form up again because the slipstream absolutely locks them together once they get a little bit close. It's like those magnetic kids' toys that they can't sell anymore.
So we've still got Nathan Verney leading this race as he makes his way down toward the infield section here on lap number 11. He's got a 7.5 second lead back to Ben Snell, followed by Peter Wilkinson. So those guys are still yet to make their pit stop, along with Clayton Davis and Tim Corn. So the top 5 separated by just over 12 seconds, and their opportunity to dive in for the pits and secure their compulsory pit stop is slowly dwindling. I'm expecting Nathan Verney to make that relatively soon, but he'll be keen to get as many laps led under his belt on this season opener as we can possibly get at this stage, I think. Jump on board with Dennis Hancock, Jeremy Bush in front of him there. So fighting for 12th and 13th position at the moment. So these guys here are seasoned veterans of the Ozicar Series, so they've been around for a long, long time, and they'll know each other's weaknesses and strengths. And Sean Doyle there will be keen to get past and make that move done sooner rather than later, you'd think.
Everyone up front pitting now, so you've got Verney, Snell, Wilkinson, Davies, Tim Court. Everyone who hasn't made their pit stop is on the lane right now, and that is going to clear through the field, and we'll get an idea of this is truly the battle for 5th and 6th here between Doyle and Matthew Mites. Mites gets close and then just sits at the rear wing towards turn 1. Chastanoff's gone through into the lead, Alex John up into 2nd, and Alex McKellar into 3rd. Here's Verney rejoining the race behind Baldwin, in front of Doyle and Mites. He's still going to have those cold tyres, so I think he might be just spending this lap trying to warm up the front tyres and then hook onto the slipstream behind these guys, attack them on the final lap potentially. Doyle, thinking about down the inside, goes for it a bit late. Probably if he'd committed to that one early, he would have been able to outbrake Verney pretty cleanly. Instead, Verney's going to have a couple more corners to hold them up and warm up his tyres.
Yeah, late opportunity there by Doyle there, but he didn't get the job done. But as a result, it's compromised his run down the backs, and Matthew Might's finding himself on the outside of the corner there, but elects to duck back in behind. We've seen Hamilton and Albon and Hamilton, and who was the other one that had come to grief there? Norris might have been.
Yeah, Norris and Checo.
Oh, the list just continues on and on through that particular corner. So obviously the Skippy cars here can do it side by side. They're nowhere near as wide as what the Formula Ones were, but a little bit of downforce and not quite the speeds to contend with, and we can see them go 2 by 2 quite safely.
He's still holding on to this 5th, isn't he? And almost everyone in the top 10 now in a battle pack, but rather than one giant battle pack, it's 2 cars and then 3 cars and then 2 cars. The only man by himself is Brady Baldwin. If you're not careful, these guys behind might catch him. I think he'll be able to hold them off that 4th place. 3 laps to go. You've got 3 cars for your lead, then Brady Baldwin all on his lonesome, then 3 cars for 5th, 2 cars for 8th, 2 cars for 10th. Everyone is having a good little scrap towards the end here, and it might be starting to get a little more exciting for this top 3, because they've been willing to let Chastanoff just lead the way for many a lap now. But once that number of laps remaining starts counting down, John and McKellar have got to have something in their back pocket here, surely.
Yes, I think they're playing the waiting game. They're playing the smart game at the moment. So Chastanoff looks like he may have just subsequently given away the lead there to car number 7 in Alex John. So change for the lead again, and now Chastanoff finds himself in a top split TV sandwich. Currently sitting in 2nd place, and the battle on here for 4th.
Sure is. Doyle has taken that 5th place, set Vernie around the outside, but Vernie might try to hold it through the inside. We've seen so much too wide into this first left-hander, and be careful grabbing too much of that curb. Vernie gives it just a little kiss, but doesn't go too crazy.
Good run there by Doyle, but he's absolutely got nowhere to go. Good defence by Vernie. Doyle's going to try and retain his speed and go around the outside up here as we're 3 wide.
Just slow down or just giving that one away, because then from back of the pack to the front goes Mites. And 2 to go. The top split TV cars in green trying to work their way to the front here, trying to box out James Chastanoff. It is just not happening just yet. Chasty is making him fight for this one, and he could potentially outfox him for the win. Still 2 more tours of the circuit to go for that one.
Yeah, we've got Brady Baldwin sitting in no man's land in position 4 there. He's about 3.5 seconds off the pace, and then about another 4 seconds ahead of the 5, 6, 7 battle as we see him go through the leaders here into turn number 3.
Chasty's once again going to put his car in the middle in the 3 wide sandwich, trying to slipstream off one, trying to slipstream off the other. Managed to box him back into 3rd place for the moment. But Brady Baldwin, look, he's still just looming in the background there. And similar thing is happening in the Doyle-Vernie-Mites fight, where Hancock and Bush have been catching them as well. So we could have some very interesting last lap situations here if some of these drivers start getting a little hot under the collar.
Yeah, Brady Baldwin's in a prime position to pick up a podium position if the likes of Alex and James, the 2 top split TV guys, and the locked on racing car there come a cropper and trip over each other. But I think all these guys are seasoned enough veterans in this series to know what they should and shouldn't be doing. So it's a lonely race back there in 4th at the moment for Brady Baldwin, but you just never know what's going to happen.
Especially with our first visit to this track in these cars as well. A few repeat tracks on the schedule over the years, but this is of course our first time at the Red Bull Ring. Keller into the lead, John into 2nd, and Chastanoff tries to sneak up the inside for 2nd there as we start the final lap. How are they going to do this one? They're trying just to leave Chastanoff out to dry. McKellar can stay all the way to the left-hand side of this track, slipstream Alex John up into second. If he's feeling like a team player, Chastanov's not going to make it easy for them as he's going to throw it down the inside there. And riding that curb on the exit has not helped Alex John. Mites and Doyle. Oh, good over-under from Doyle, but Mites kind of hanging tough to the inside there as they battle over 5th and 6th. Verney has still just stayed in touch for 7th. And Falkenbush, I don't think they're going to catch him. The second here, though, Chastanov hanging Alex John out wide, and McKellar might be just running away with this one. A little early to call that, but he's got 0.8 of a second, and it seems like Alex John isn't going to give Chastanov anything for free.
No, I think first place at the moment might have been sealed and signed and done, and the battle for the second and third spot on the podium is where it's at the moment. So Chastanov finds himself on the outside there going into that corner, but if he can hold it like it seems he is, he's going to find himself on the inside for the final 2 corners on the run down to the finish line. So doing a great job there at the moment, giving enough room, just enough room there to Alex John, but as we watch them go side by side.
Well, into the final corner for the last lap, McKellar is a second clear, but somehow Chastanov is managing to hold off Alex John. It's going to be our podium, but is it going to be in that order? They got to get all the way to Barney at the timing line, pulling out late, but too late for McKellar to steal second away from James Chastanov. Similar story going on here, though, and we might almost have had another photo finish, but I think Sean Doyle was just a little bit too far back to steal that one away from Matthew Mites, and Verney finish up behind them. Top 10 coming through, and again, is that out of fuel or a slowdown? We've seen some very late slowdowns.
Yeah, I think that might have been a slowdown. Of course, if you don't use up your slowdown before you get the checkered flag, you'll get a post-race penalty, which will be much more significant and can drop you further down the race order. So very advantageous there. If you do get a slowdown out of that last corner, it's very important that you make sure you clear it before you cross that finish line.
Finishing order, Alex McKellar, a second clear from James Chastanov and Alex John. Brady Baldwin wouldn't have been bored in the early laps of that race, but towards the end he was all on his lonesome. And Matthew Mites and Sean Doyle, Nathan Verney, Dennis Hancock, Jeremy Bush, and Ben Snell, who I think still had no front wing, in the top 10 there. And then Farron Hancock, John Schultz, Peter Wilkinson, Tim Cornt. I think it was Wilkinson with that slowdown to clear, wasn't it? Clayton Davies, R. Felberg, Simon Dobner, Russell Clark, Craig Kermond, and after leading in turn 1, lap 1, Braden Martin finishes 20th. He wasn't in bad company with drivers who picked up a penalty for an unsafe pit entry, though, because behind him, Sean McKenzie had one as well. Ash Knowles had one as well. And then John Snell, 23rd. Jason Gainey, 24th. Leon Williams, 25th. Peter Bowling, 26th. Darren Lasue, also an unsafe pit entry, meant he was held a long time in pit lane. And then Sean Carey one lap down in retirements. Tim Harris and Alex Attard.
So that rounds out our grid for round number 1. Plenty of close battles all the way through the field. Quite often come with some of those drivers there being separated by less than a second after 15 laps around here. So good driving from everybody there tonight. I think most people will be pretty pleased to put their cars back in the transporters tonight and walk away from round number 1 with the points that they've gathered, and then they can focus on the remainder of the season, which consists of another 5 rounds that yet to go on this European vacation that the Ozicar organisers have dubbed it.
Indeed, and to the podium ceremonies, I guess, we can speak to a couple of our victorious drivers after that race. Winner was Alex McKellar, and we're going to pick him now. Congratulations. Decent points haul then for the defending champion in this race, and always useful in a slipstream battle pack like that to have a teammate in the fight as well.
Yeah, g'day, David, Jason, Jay. Yeah, it was good. AJ and I were able to work together, which is always good. And look, you know, we just spoke about it in the mid-race. No point in battling because, as you can see from the first stint, it really cost everyone a lot of time. So we just sat with James, and then 3 laps to go. Righto, game on. Team orders are away and are sort of thrown away, and then we have at it. So it was good, and a good result for the team in the end.
No dramas for you guys up front, obviously, but I did see maybe 5 drivers get penalised for an unsafe pit entry. Is that something you've practiced, something you're aware of?
Yeah, 100%. Look, the pit entry here is really tricky. You're in 4th gear, hitting the apex every other lap, and you've got to go a bit slower there on the apex to that penultimate corner to get pit entry. So, look, it's tricky, and it's very marginal, because you want to carry so much speed to minimise your time off the track, and it's very easy to pick up the slowdown or the penalty on the painted surface on the entry there. So yeah, absolutely, it was something we practiced, and fortunately tonight didn't come a cropper.
Well, double podium at the Red Bull Ring. I'm sure you're quite happy with your visit here. What are you thinking for next week at Barcelona, another Grand Prix track?
Yeah, love the Grand Prix tracks. Looking forward to it. It's a challenging one. I haven't raced there a great deal. I mean, similar to this track, I guess, first week here. So, it'll be interesting. And I don't know how much the field is raced at Barcelona, but it's not one that we visit in the skips too often. So it might be a bit awkward at times like we saw tonight. So, just try to keep clean and keep the points coming.
See you in 7 days' time.
Thanks, guys.
That was Alex John, our race winner for heat number 2, round 1 here at the Red Bull Ring, as we drag our second place getter up into the comms box tonight. We welcome James Chastanoff to the microphone.
Thank you.
Wow. You, how's the back of your neck? I thought you might have been tired from looking behind you there for quite a few of those laps.
Yeah, I was driving in my rear vision mirror for most of that. I think, well, nearly all of it, apart from the few moments at the start. Yeah, it was pretty intense.
We saw you, both yourself and the 2 Alexes, decide to dive into pit lane relatively early in the race tonight, and that's something that is a little bit later than what you're used to doing. And normally it's a lap 1 dive into the pits and the change of strategy tonight. But was it always your plan to get in as early as you can and then just get some consistent laps under your belt, or did it sort of depend on who was around you in those opening laps as to how you were going to handle it?
No, it was always the plan to go in, bang on lap 5, knowing that you could get 10 laps out of a tank. Whether or not that was going to be faster or slower than going the full 10 or 11 laps as some of the other guys went, I honestly wasn't sure, but I just figured I'd just pick one, see how it goes, and luckily it paid off tonight.
So think all the way back to 15 laps ago on lap number 1, as we were going through the infield there, and we saw John Schultz get a little bit loose on those cold tyres. Pretty good reaction time from yourself to avoid the Milo car in front of you as he made his way around?
I honestly thought I was dead. That was probably millimeters in it. I haven't gone back and looked how close that was yet. But yeah, I really held my breath, and I was super relieved when I finally got through on that. It was pretty close.
Yeah, it was almost a make-or-break moment for quite a few drivers. Your teammate there in Braden Martin accidentally come unstuck as a result. He was a bit of a side casualty of that, but very, very lucky to get through there. Another coat of paint on that locked-on racing Skippy, and I think he might have almost been involved.
Yeah, it was a big shame for Braden. He had such good pace all week. He was slightly faster than me through most of the practices and even in qualifying as well. So I really felt like he really had a podium up for grabs this week. Definitely on his pace. It was just one of those things of racing where sometimes things just don't go right. But yeah, he should hold his chin up high if he come back next week.
No, he drove very well, and he did. He qualified second on the grid off the front row, so he'll recompose himself. We've still got another 5 rounds of this season to go, so he'll be back, no doubt, with something to prove and some fire in his belly to make up for some unfortunate incidents tonight that weren't necessarily his own doing. So anyway, we'll throw over you. You can say a quick thank you to your sponsors before we move on, James.
Yep, just a big thank you to the Locked On boys, the Locked On podcast. Check that out on all your favorite podcast streaming spaces, as well as our also check out our 2 major sponsors, CD Cinematography and Brewster Coffee as well. Cheers, thanks guys.
It's place 2 getter tonight, James Chastanoff, after leading for a majority of the laps there tonight on this relatively short circuit around the Austrian Alps. But throw over to you, Dave. You can have a quick chat to Alex John, our third place getter tonight.
Yeah, sorry. Do a bit of rearrangement and drag in Alex John. Podium for you, sir. Not bad.
No, much better than the first race. So it was good to salvage something. From the round.
We expected always that the slipstreaming would be turned up, another dozen notches here around the Red Bull Ring, and some of the pack stuff we saw was getting towards Daytona in the way that it was racing. So your thoughts, race 1 and race 2?
Definitely down out of turn 2 down that back straight. It was pretty crazy and caught myself out. I didn't realise that there was a third car on the inside. So insane slipstream battles and lots of side-by-side stuff. The first stint in the second race was pretty crazy, and we sort of, the green cars behind just sort of sat in and watched Chastity and Brady go hammer and tong for 5 or 6 laps, and it was an interesting race. It doesn't the track doesn't race like really any other track we've been on, so it was good fun. It was a good challenge.
What about changes to the fuel and the pit stop rules? You obviously would have thought about what you were going to do differently this season. Did it play out how you were expecting, and how does it make your race different?
It is different because the first half of lap 1, race 2, I was intent on pitting on lap 1, and then I remembered that we wouldn't be able to do that. So, luckily remembered. But for here, it was all about the pit entrance, because you're taking the same apex as cars that might want to keep going full speed, and you're like 10-20k difference. So for tonight, the pit strategy was just all about having clear track behind you, just so you don't get rear-ended.
What about track limits out here? Obviously, you get that one qualifying lap for race 2. They're very important. I did see there is some places out here you can get some slowdowns as well. What's it like just trying to keep it between the lines?
Yeah, it's an interesting track. It's worse than what's the one we had last week, Kota. That was pretty tough, and this one for quali, obviously got to be really disciplined and be a little bit conservative, not drive at 10 tenths for the quali. But in the race, I was surprised that there wasn't more 1Xs racked up. I think I had a fairly low count. I didn't check the final score, but I would have liked to have seen an incident limit and then a drive-through, sort of to have the drivers self-police each other. But I don't think it was too much of an issue tonight.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Any shout-outs you need to give?
I have to shout out for Russell just in case Michaela forgot, and the rest of the top split boys. And sorry to Braden. I was really gutted for both of us, because it would have been a good podium, I think, for both of us in the first race.
Catch you around.
Thank you.
And that'll do for the post-race here at the Red Bull Ring. Like I said, next week, Ozicar Skip Barber returns to Barcelona, and we're going to be racing on the Grand Prix layout there as well. So plenty of track, plenty of slipstreaming and overtaking as well on another F1 grade circuit. Hope you'll join us then on Simspeed TV. And I've been David Haynes. It's been Jason Fewens alongside me and Jay Kennedy in the production. Once again, we've got to thank Ozicar's sponsors, Simfinity, Locked On iRacing Podcast, Prestige Trophy Badge and Engraving, and 24/7 Race Control. Make sure you're following us on all of our platforms here at Simspeed TV, and we will see you again for Ozicar Formula Skip Barber Series next Thursday night.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to all. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Oh
guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh, no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?